Copact's Dynamic Duo series, where impact is guaranteed. Woden's CEO, Ed Lyons on. Its journey, background.
Woden works with companies really to make sure they've got in place that strategic narrative that transforms them into an essential brand. And it's something in the last couple of companies that I was a part of, I felt acutely. So if you've ever been a founder of a company, in early stage sales or marketing or revenue leader, you know how challenging it is to know intuitively that your business delivers a lot of value, that you've got a great idea, maybe that you're servicing a couple of happy clients, but know kind of like how frustrating it is when that belief and passion just doesn't translate in the conversations that you have with your prospects and customers. And I know every company I started really took us a little bit to get that right. And when we did, it was like, I think what unlocked our company's potential and really got us going. And I can tell the story a little bit later, but in my last company, this challenge was particularly significant. We cracked it and really kind of came out of that experience feeling like this was what I wanted to do for at least the foreseeable future. And since then, we've worked with about 300 companies to make sure they've got in place the strategic narrative that does exactly that.
What do you think's the main thing holding people back?
The first is I'm a believer in strategic narrative, this idea that the company really has to have this clear articulation of its value that's customer centric, lays out the case for change to the buyer, and really kind of draws them through the customer journey. I think a company ought to invest in that, whether they invest in it with Woden or somebody else. So my belief in this kind of really even transcends whether people do business with me. It's a relatively kind of nascent category out there. Companies really would be much more likely to achieve their goals, have more engaged teams, have happier customers if they thought about the value that they deliver and how they communicate it. I think people struggle with it internally. You know, a lot of it comes down to perspective. You think about that kind of old adage, the cobbler's kids are usually the ones that have kind of holes in their shoes, right? People spend all day working on servicing their clients. They think about how they're going to drive their business forward. It's real hard to take a step back, think critically about what's the value that we're delivering? Why are people not seeing this? A lot of times the value that we bring to our clients, of course, yes, there's the experience that comes from a couple hundred engagements. We've got a framework that we've really honed and developed over time that you've seen. The biggest thing that I bring is an ability to ask a question a little bit differently, to listen to you and hear things you say that you don't hear yourself, to make the connections between where your customers perceive value, where you guys are trying to move with your strategy. And I think it's when you kind of bring all of those things together, along with the positioning in the market, the opportunity that the business has, that's where you really can pull together a powerful narrative that can transform the business into something that buyers see as essential. One of the things, especially that like early stage leaders forget, is that if you've become the CEO or the founder of a company that's relatively early stage, you intuitively understand your value. Like you saw the opportunity in the market. That's why you started the company. And like you're on that real innovator's end of the curve there where, you know, you get it. Most people don't. That's why they didn't start the same company that you started, right? That's why this idea isn't already out there. You know, we have to step back and I think see things from our customer's vantage point, which a lot of time is very different than our own. And I think that's where having someone kind of help you with that becomes pretty powerful, right? If everyone was moving through the buying cycle the way you would move through it, like, you know, you guys would already be $1 billion company, right? You need to figure out a way to communicate that to people who just don't naturally kind of get the value that you deliver. And I think that's where kind of thinking about the narrative and the right way to communicate that consistently across the buying journey makes a big difference.
The mission of Woden and specifically how it guides your work and live by your mission each and every day.
If I were going to use a word to describe how we think about our mission, it's almost borderline cultish, but it really does work. Our mission here is to transform purposeful companies into essential brands. And we talk about that at the start of every meeting that we have as a team. We're pretty sort of old school. We all come in every day, work together in person together every day. But every stand-up that we have, you know, by team to start a day begins with the mission. Every, meeting we have with our teams or as an all-hands meeting starts with the mission. Even our first value is being mission obsessed, right? And I think for us, it's about that nature of transformation. You know, when we think about our mission, we don't talk about what we do, right? It's not about strategic narrative. It's really about why clients come to us. Every company that we have a relationship with, I think, is animated by purpose. You really can't build a message, a successful company these days, if you're not animated by a desire to create an impact. We want to help a company transform that purpose into something that customers see as essential, that they can't live without. A lot of founders and executives at all stages settle for their company being seen as nice to have, to cut through the amount of noise that's out there today, the amount of options that buyers have. You have to get people to see your brand as something that they absolutely can't live without. That's about connecting purpose with that idea of being essential. It's pretty rare that someone has got to the point where they can, engage with us, where they've got a product in the market and it's not essential to at least a few people. And I think that's one of the big things that we do is have that natural touch and empathy for the founding team's perspective. At the same time, is everyone a fit for us? No. For us, it's more the purposeful piece. I really do believe today, if you look at the buying journey, customers enter the buying process much later, more educated about alternatives than they ever have been in the past. As a result, every touch point with the buyer has to be aligned with a consistent story. That can't come from a company that's transactional. It's got to come from a company that has a customer-centric commitment and vision and purpose. That's what I look for more than anything else. I think it's, as a compliment to you, really at the center of what you guys are doing, right? This commitment to the customer in a way that people ought to enter relationships where they can have a belief that their partner's got as much skin in the game as they do, right? Just as committed to their success as they are. You're building a business around that, but there's also, I think, a deeper sense of purpose, right, that underpins it. That's really, really critical for you guys to build the type of ecosystem and the type of community that you're looking to build.
100%. And really, I feel like that is the best answer when I hear from partners, that purpose, that vision for that end outcome. And the best partners we have at Copact are helping you unlock that, and being aligned to that end outcome is really a differentiator versus traditional vendors that are growth at all cost and only focused on their own internal metrics or utilization. That's the difference that Copact's trying to bring.
Well, look, it only takes one scroll through LinkedIn to know that, the economics have changed a lot, right? Look at, right, how people are raising money, right? How they're using capital in their business today, like that growth at all costs era. If it didn't die last year, it certainly died this year, right? And I think you look to businesses now, there's a much bigger level of enthusiasm about bootstrapping, more emphasis on profitable growth. Even companies that are raising today, it's about traction, it's about unit economics. The mentality has shifted that gives people a bias towards a partner who needs them to be successful.
This is a great movement in the right direction of eliminating growth, unprofitable scaling, fundraising just to fundraise. I know Copact is really working and driving into the market. The day people announce their internal company success on the success they've delivered for their clients. It's not a case study, it's not a sub-metric. That's our North Star, to get people to focus on creating great value for your customers. And we're just not focused on that enough today. Interesting with Copact, guaranteeing results, putting skin in the game, aligning incentives. You're going to do everything you can to deliver those results. And if you don't, you didn't earn your full fees. How does Woden think about the impact guarantee that you're providing?
Our guarantee is pretty simple. For us, our projects unfold over a few phases. The end of the first phase is where a business develops what we call its strategic narrative, a story kernel. We back the story kernel with a very simple guarantee, which is when you receive your story kernel, if for any reason you do not believe it captures what makes you essential, you can terminate the project and we'll refund everything you've paid. I get a lot of feedback on that, in that it's highly unusual, for marketing agencies. In fact, I think one of the big complaints people tend to have about marketing is they feel like they plow a lot of money into it and they never really know where it goes, if it works. And every business owner of all stripes has got a story about being burned by a marketing agency that they spent a lot of money on and then nothing happened. One thing about impact guarantees that's really powerful is if you're willing to offer it, it communicates very clearly that you're credible and that you believe. You're never going to take on a client if you think you're going to have to give them the money back. And frankly, the client's not hiring you if they think they're getting money back either, right? It's a big part of why I slid all the chips onto the client side of the table. That puts a lot of onus on our team to deliver for our clients and perform. Most companies today don't think about their strategic narrative as core as their logo or their website, although I would argue that they're even probably more important in today's day and age.
I fully agree. I've done impact guarantees, value engineering, value-based management since my days at Deloitte. It's where I learned it. One question that always baffles me, why do you think it's not more widespread in the industry?
Why other people don't do it? They don't have to. So it's on that extreme end of the spectrum. If I were McKinsey, I probably wouldn't offer an impact guarantee either. But the flip side to that, there's a lot of companies that are probably afraid to. Might be afraid for a couple of reasons, like they're going to be exposed or maybe their service doesn't deliver value. But I think for the larger number, there's the fear of the unknown. And I can empathize with that a lot. Like when we started doing this, I didn't know how it was going to go. I mean, I've never changed the guarantee. It's worked out for us. But I think, the first time you start offering it, there's a very, I think, rational anxiety. Are people going to get it even if we deliver a good product and then just ask for their money back? And look, that's where you have to have the confidence that you're building a good relationship, that you're delivering value that goes beyond just what the client paid. To come back to what we do for people, look at your narrative, look at your purpose, look at how you think about the problem you solve, and Look, if you're rock solid on the value that you deliver, the problem your clients engage you to resolve, and how you can provide that, you should be pretty confident backing that with a guarantee. But I think you got to start with the purpose piece first.
Continuously. Success story.
The power and potential of the strategic narrative is there's a company out there called Redis. They're a unstructured database. They compete against like Mongo, Couchbase. And they called us up a couple of years ago. They originally were an open source company, and they had just started to try their product into the enterprise. They were pretty flummoxed. They said, look, we've got open source deployments at this point in 95% of the Fortune 500, but we literally have one paying customer. We cannot figure out why is it that all these people are willing to use us open source. They obviously like the product, but they will not make the commitment to do a paid deployment of Redis Enterprise and help us figure this out. And so, we came in and started looking at it, and I think this is what you see a lot of times with strategic storytelling is the problem's not the product. I mean, Redis is a great product. It's really not the team. The issue is that there's a gap between how the buyers are understanding the value of the product and how the team understands the value of the product. And we did a little bit of research. And the big thing that we uncovered was that all of their open source relationships had been built with people that were at a very technical level of their client base, when really the big decision that was going to have to get made about database architecture was taking place at a VP or even a C-suite level. The technical leaders were just really not compelling advocates inside the organization. They would talk a lot about the technical superiority of Redis, but to go back to our earlier point, felt very much like a better than story. Redis can do this better. Redis is going to make this easier, which is great, but for like a multi-million-dollar software deployment is not going to be enough to get people to say, we have to change. The thought about Redis, how do you build a story fundamentally against the status quo? Every one of these companies has got some kind of database that they're using today. Redis is looking to displace that. And we've really got to make a case for something here that challenges the status quo, but more importantly, can cut through multiple levels of buying process throughout the organization to get them to make this enterprise level change. Landed on this belief that the companies that run fastest run Redis. We were able to build that story out. We took it out of the technology and landed with this simple, clear idea. We were able to take this through a strategic story and map it onto the buyer at a couple of different levels. The technical buyer, it aligned with how they already perceived Redis, that very clear technology, features and benefits. But then we allowed them to use that story to then go up to that next level. Businesses that run fastest on Redis became all about to market. How fast are you shipping software? How fast are you shipping product? That's what their KPIs are all about. And then finally, ended on for the C-level, this idea of companies that run fastest run Redis, and it's all about digital transformation, hitting this big organizational imperative to change how the organization levers data, gets value out of its data. And what you're able to do in that instance was be able to get all those buyers in a room together. And when someone said Redis, it was speed. And there was a very clear one-to-one association. And, to me, the power of strategic narrative is that, yes, it clarifies the value of the organization. It allows you to create variations of that story for each buyer, for each product, for each funnel stage, that delivers the message in a way that feels very specific and very tailored, but allows people across all of those different touch points to fundamentally have a conversation around the same value and move the buying process forward. In the case of Redis, right, that's been really transformational for them. They've since grown to like $4 right now. They've been looking at an IPO.
That's a great story. And it really showcases how that slight tweak in the strategic narrative really brought out the value of an amazing product, an amazing team, and an amazing organization. And it's interesting of how many of those have just flopped and not lived up to their potential because they didn't do this and they didn't spend the time on the narrative.
Yeah, well, look, they say the best products fail all the time, right? Having the best product doesn't, guarantee that you win. It doesn't guarantee adoption. The way that you win today was by getting people to see you as something that they absolutely can't live without. And then, frankly, going out and telling their friends and telling their network about that. And that's what story I think does really, really well for a good brand. Well, at least in my experience, I'm a big sell it and they will come. Until you have customers, every business is just an idea. The best stories I've heard are about the people that have an idea, go out, start selling in the market, and they use whatever runway they pick up from their first couple of sales to actually put the product into fruition. In the case of building out that narrative, the most important thing is you've got a problem customers need solved. If you've got a problem that the customer needs solved and a unique viewpoint about how to do that, you can build a good story around that, draw people in, and then connect them with a product that's going to validate their
Sell it and they will come. One takeaway you to know about Woden.
The real question I would ask is, do you believe that you've got a clear and compelling way to articulate your value in a short period of time? You can't communicate your vision to your team, can't help your customers understand why you're essential. I think you got to address that, and especially now where everyone's thinking about their planning for 2025. You can't execute if your team doesn't know the vision. Every business today has got to tackle that.
Partners that believe in you succeed with you. I 100% believe that and love that point. Ed, thank you so much for having us on. This is Copact's Dynamic Duo series, where results are guaranteed.